Hi, and welcome to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson from OTG Capital. We broadcast locally on Radio Northern Beaches and around Australia on the Community Radio Network. I'm really pleased to say we've been picked up by probably 14, 15 stations now. So for those of you out in regional Australia mainly that have picked us up, thank you. We really appreciate you listening in. And for some of you city folk, maybe have a listen to us on the internet or ping your local community radio station and say, hey, put Dollars and Making Sense on, because they can get it for free through the CRN and the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia, the CBAA. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we also go out on YouTube, we go out on Spotify, we go out on iHeartRadio, and we're put out for continuous learning with the Tax Agents Association, the Institute of Financial Professionals of Australia. So we are multimedia, going out to a whole range of different people all over the place, and we're all about financial education. I'm really pleased to welcome back Philippa Hunt from Wise Girls Money, and we are talking again financial education. And this is part 2 of an interview that we commenced last week, and we're talking about the Future2 foundations. I'm looking away from my screen at the moment. Building stronger financial futures is what we're all about. And I guess because, Philippa, you and I are doing education, knowing that improving financial well-being does make a difference. And we were talking about this last week. So just a quick refresher, we're talking about Queen Chalenga, we're talking about Kalgoorlie, and we were talking about profiles of people coming through. Now, fascinatingly, you use a Myers-Briggs 4x4 matrix, and it gives you a profile of users. Can I pick up from last week's discussion now? Was there a predominant theme of people that have stepped up and say, hey, I need help? Was there a particular bent of ENFJ or IB do da, whatever the thing is? But yes, was there a particular bent of person that sort of is saying, hey, I really need some help and I'm willing to put myself out there?
It's interesting because one group hasn't started this one and one has just started. When we were running the research projects, excuse me for a sec, the bulk of them were intuitives, whether they're introverted or extroverted, because they realise that online courses appeal to them. And the beauty of Wise Girls Money is the fact that it is on an online course. And so it doesn't matter what time of the day or night you decide to log on to do it. It's in the convenience of your own home. And so we did that because of the pandemic. It used to run as face-to-face workshops and it just didn't prove viable. So what I've found with the types, when they answered the survey as part of the pre-test and post-test to make sure this thing worked, a bunch of them were mostly intuitives. Introverted, extroverted, most of them are in, I would say, a balance between the third and fourth preference. So I had EN, extroverted, intuitives, introverted, intuitives, but they all had one thing in common. They were under 40. And so the bulk of those were learning some skill that was going to set them up for the rest of their life. For the over 40s, I got a broader range. One of the girls was in her mid-40s and she had been diagnosed ADHD. And her greatest problem wasn't her type. It was the fact that having ADHD and learning to manage that in her life, particularly with budgeting, was quite difficult for her. But once she got the skill and she learned how to do it, then she was upgrading to becoming an qualified aged care worker. So with the skills that we taught her in budgeting and managing her time, she was able to eventually systematically work through her entire course and graduate. A bit of a star. And she said, without your help, I would never have been able to do it, because she had the support of the group. But because I came from that psychology background, I was able to support her, teaching her in a way that made sense for ADHD, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's fascinating when you're talking about ADHD. My daughter, who's almost 31 years old, was diagnosed ADHD rather late. My boys are both ADHD. And, for people that are out there thinking, oh, it's all a load of bollocks, pick up the phone and call me anytime and let me, I will bring you into the real world of, being on the autism spectrum. And it's got nothing to do with Tylenol or anything like that. Those idiots over in America that
Ray, that's a distraction. Okay.
Is it ever? But again, people are talking about it in all the wrong ways.
It's normal.
And again, they keep on thinking that ADHD is a boy's disease. And again, this underdiagnosis, you put ADHD next to endometriosis, and you are talking about, this
half the population,
this sexist view of diagnosis that is being purveyed as more like a campaign against women. And I just sit there and scratch my head and go, guys, when are we going to wake up and start smelling the coffee? This is, we've got to stop this. We've got to stop this and start being a bit more realistic, that the ladies in our lives aren't putting their hand up and screaming blue murder because they're doing it just to get attention. They're doing it because they need help. And so...
And here's the thing, Ray, you're quite right. It shows up differently in girls. Quite differently. And that's why it's harder to recognize ADHD in girls, because with boys you can see it because it runs down my father's male side of the family, and it's more underdiagnosed in women than it is in men. So for her to come out and say, I'm struggling because I'm ADHD, that changed my teaching straight away.
Yeah.
And the other girls this is the over 40s group. One of them actually has an ADHD child. So immediately there was a complete turnaround in understanding to support her through. And the good news was that she graduated and got a placement, as you have to do in aged care. And she increased the salary. She said, I've got savings for the first time in my life now that I've learnt this skill from you.
Well, I've taught some of my own extended family just basic budgeting, and the joy and delight that I see in their faces 3-6 months later when they come back and say, I've actually got money in the bank, Ray. And back in the day, I was simply showing them, stop using your ATMs like they're crazy, because we were getting slugged all those fees a number of years back. And
yes.
I was saving one of my family members something like $120 a month.
Wow.
And when you're only making 30 grand a year at that time, it was a huge difference. And so I'm curious, I want to move on a little bit. When you've been delivering, and again, in last week's show, we were talking about the Future2 Foundation and providing funding for women in need. And so we focused in on Queen Shalinga out of Kalgoorlie. I want to look now, I'm looking at your Wise Girls Money website. We've talked about super, we've talked about budgeting. What else is the kind of focus? You talk about psychology. Is that really the big bent? So rather than just saying, hey, super's 12% of your salary or whatever, are we going back to first principles now about more a psychological approach to money management?
Yes. The whole point of this course is we focus on their values and their self-esteem, the way they do what they do. The first half of it is behavioural. So when I wrote the book, I realised that I needed to teach it to make sure it worked. So coming from female psychology, our neuroscience, the way our hormones make our brain work the way it does, and I understand that that's a bit out there as far as money's concerned, but if you don't understand how women's brains work, you don't understand the way and why we make financial decisions the way we do.
Well, I was about to say, we're not talking about the how now, because the how about super, the how about budgeting. We're talking about the why. You spend money or don't spend money, or you partition money or you don't partition. That's a bigger factor, isn't it?
It's what drives it. Because Westpac's known for decades that 85% of purchasing decisions are made by women in the household.
Don't tell men that.
Fact. And so the thing is, I come at it from a neuroscience perspective, so they understand how their brain works, why it works the way they do, our hormones, the way things are driven, the way we need to support our health as women. And so when they understand, and I've heard this, so is that why I do what I do? I never knew that. That's a real insight. So they get these sorts of behavioural insights. They have a look at their own values and what drives there, because everybody sets a goal that means something to them. So depending on the emotional attachment and how strong that is to the outcome of the goal, women will do whatever it takes to achieve it, which is why people spend $100,000 on IVF, because it's important to them. While they'll spend the amount of money that they do on a wedding, why they are driven to save for a deposit for a house. You check in with the values and why they're doing that, that's the behavioural driver. So we get to all of that because people don't save their money unless there's an overriding goal to get somewhere, to achieve something. It's just saving up to go overseas.
And so that's primarily why you do the Myers-Briggs 4x4 assessment.
Yes, because the way they do that is dependent on their personality type, and that was going to be the premise of the doctorate. I went and got my own financial services license, and that went out the door. I don't have the time. Nice to have, not a must-have. So I've taken the same principles and set this up as a pre-test, post-test. And then after the first research project, a year after they'd done the course, I checked in with them. What are you now doing? I've got married. I'm getting married. I'm pregnant. My first child's due in the next 4 weeks. Another one is getting married. Her child is due at the end of November. So these were the under 40s. So when they started out, they then worked out what their goals were. And once they had the skill, they set about applying it. 2 of them, sisters, went overseas. One stayed with a job. The other one came back. And so another girl graduated with her degree. She's now gone off and working for one of the major financial publications. So it gave them the confidence. And that was the whole point. It's not just a skill set, it's competence and confidence. So when I checked in a year after they'd done it, did it make a difference? And if so, how? And what are you doing now? And that's when all of this came back. It was quite remarkable. So it did what it set out to do, was to work with women for themselves, supporting their emotional, mental, and as Queen says, financial well-being.
Okay, we're just about halfway through today's show. I'm Ray Treverson from Dollars and Making Sense. I'm here at the microphone and camera with Philippa Hunt, and she is with Wise Girls Money Academy, and we're talking about the Future2 Foundation. We're going to take a short break and be back with you in just a moment. Hi, and thank you for listening to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly radio program about finance, money, and investing on Radio Northern Beaches and nationally on the Community Radio Network around Australia. The views, comments, and opinions aired during our program should not be construed or viewed as financial advice. Any commentary is general advice only and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. You should consider whether the advice is suitable for you and your personal circumstances. If in doubt, you should contact an authorised licensed financial planner. We welcome questions and feedback, and you can get in touch with us via our blog, social media channels, or email. Please search for Dollars and Making Sense in your favourite podcast platform, or check out our blog at otgcapital.com.au/blog. Hi, and welcome back to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson. I'm really pleased to have back at the microphone and camera Philippa Hunt, and she is with Wise Girls Money Academy. Now, for the past 3 sessions, we've been talking about the Future2 Foundation and a grants program that Philippa applied for and won some little tidy sum of money to be able to put on some freebies. And there's nothing we like more at Dollars and Making Sense than freebies. We love freebies. And so one of the things I wanted to do today as well is that there's a bunch of freebies happening at the moment, and we were able to leverage a really good link through Queen Chalenga, who operates a social financial counselling service in Kalgoorlie, of all places. Wow, Kalgoorlie. We've had Queen on the show now a number of times, and it's been absolutely fascinating because I tell you, I mean, I've driven through Kalgoorlie many, many years ago, but you know, city folk, get out and have a look at the big wide country, and it's not what you think's out there, that's for sure. Now, Philippa, when I look at Wise Girls Money Academy, your website, this is all about your education programs, but there's a big button there that says Future Make the Difference Grants Program. Tell us a little bit more about that. So what's going to happen if somebody actually clicks that link?
Well, what it does is it goes back to the Future2 website, and it educates people as to the purpose of Future2 and why they do what they do. It's been around a long time, and as you can tell by the stats on their website, just the good that they do out in the community, just from the sheer number of different grants that they allocated last year. I got this one with Wise Girls Money as financial literacy for women, but they have such a broad offering in terms of their categories and what they will apply the grants to. And so they get a lot of submissions, and they in the different categories. Then they sift and sort them. It's quite a lengthy process, and judge them on their merits and what they think these programs will achieve. So the shared vision and common goals of Wise Girls Money Academy program and Future2 is that we're giving back to women who need the support in financial literacy and education, but skill and competence. It's one thing being able to spell superannuation, you kind of understand what it's for, but you're able to do something with it and save into it and understand your risk profile and what you're invested in your superannuation and the insurance and how that all works. That's different. That's what the education's for. So the shared value that I have with the Future2 is giving something back. So by helping these migrant women getting started in a new country in a place like Kalgoorlie perfectly fits the premise of what Future2 gave us the grant for and us using it. The other thing I wanted to do is to take a small amount of that money and start developing more advanced modules for the Wise Girls Money Academy program itself. Because when I went back to the women who'd done it and was succeeding using those skills, I said, if I ran something more, what would it be? Quick as a flash, they said shares and property. Because everybody, Australia is obsessed with property.
Yes, we are.
Obsessed. But I've heard women say to me, oh, but shares are risky. So I say, think of the biggest company you can think of. Straight away they say the banks. The biggest one of them all, the CBA. They made $10 billion profit. So I said to them, think this through. 1 billion is 1,000 houses worth $1 million each. They got their head around that. Multiply that by 10. 10,000 houses worth $1 million each is their net profit. Then there's this, oh my God moment. I said, so do you think that that bank is going to go out of business anytime soon? No. So do you think buying bank shares is risky? No.
Okay, good education, I guess, in that regard.
It is, because you're bringing it down to the everyday.
And so with the foundation money that you've been able to now push into the community via Queen's program in Kalgoorlie, one of the things I wanted to ask you is that, you know, we've talked about the profile of the participants, their migrant background, the under 40, the over 40s, and again, some fascinating statistics and the personality profiles as well. But can you tell me something, Philippa, that has absolutely surprised you that you weren't even aware of before you started this outreach program now into Kalgoorlie, and now it's like, yeah, it's an absolute gotcha moment?
I listened to their stories and where they'd come from and how hard it was for them to navigate the immigration system and the visas, but they were so determined to make a better life for themselves and their children. And it says not just about my education, studying, it's about providing a better future for my children. And so what I'm going to be learning from this, I can teach my kids how to be responsible with their money and grow their own future. So when I was listening to these stories of sheer bloody-minded courage, that these women were so determined to achieve this goal, they did whatever it took to get here. Often it was a 2-year process just to get here. Doesn't mean that a lot of them, they're hoping to stay. Some of them are studying, because these are women in their 30s, remember. But the moment for me was the realization that they are so determined to make something better of their life and to give back to the community here, that this program supports that achievement. That was such a moment for me.
I'm just wondering if there are a few mainstream media programs out there that feature the dark side of immigration would wonder, venturing into this particular program that you've been running now for a little bit of a different story, because I'm the product of a migrant family myself, and I know even though my mum and dad got a ticket in the 50s to come here because there was a lot of work at the time, nothing was easy, and certainly nothing was handed to them or to me on a plate. And certainly the way that it's characterized these days, that it's such a free ride for the migrant community. I really want to shake some people very, very hard and say, go and talk to people like Queen and the people that are doing your course at the moment. I think you would hear a very, very different story. So look, we're moving on. One of the things I'm curious of, there's been some really good work here. It's not going to stop here, is it? Is there some more that's going to be happening around the corner? Is there more potential programs available for you through Future2 for Wise Girls Money?
Well, what I'm doing is that with whatever the money we've got left after this, and I've developed the modules, will be used to educate more women. So at that point, while it's not expensive to do the course, when you're a migrant woman starting out, that small amount of money is. So one of the things I wanted to do going forward was to look, because the more work I do with this, once this money is used up, it'll be more pro bono for the work that I do. So what I will do is then go back and talk to them about what else we can do to work together.
Well, maybe there's an opportunity here for people that are out there listening. A bit of sponsorship wouldn't hurt. And we're not talking, fantastically huge amounts of money that would help. How many women have you got doing the course at the current moment?
I've got 14 as the first crop, and they're started, and so we've got. Queen has said to me that once we get this lot through, she's going to round up some more, because here's the thing. In a community like Kalgoorlie, when you have social proof and positivity, then the word gets out around a community like that very quickly. And she said it won't take me long, because she rounded this up in the time I saw you. She had them together in 10 days, 2 weeks. I'm not kidding. So we can do this all over again. And she said, once it gets out there that this is what we're doing, she said more will turn up.
I guess that's the other thing. I'd encourage people to go to your website. The link there to the Future Grants program is there as well.
I'll just explain that, Ray.
Sure.
One of the conditions of winning the grant was to put their logo up on my website, so that people understood that the Future2 Foundation supported my program. But the grants program, where the applications have since closed, those won't be announced now until the end of this year, November. So it's not as if people can go and get money from the Future2. There's a whole process of applying for a grant, as it does with any institution or any government body. Then your application is assessed, and then the grant is awarded. So
I guess my suggestion, Philippa, is for people that are listening now that may be interested in the future, is to maybe write to you and register interest, because I know with Queen going out and shaking the Kalgoorlie trees, there'll be more than enough people that will be coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, and saying, yes, I'm interested. And I guess that's what I really want to see. I don't want this to be a one-off. I think this has been such an invigorating program. And one of the things that I just, whilst you were talking just before, one of the things that I think is incumbent on you and I to do is to actually do a show where we might get 3 or 4 of the participants in a group chat, and simply ask them, how did you find the personality test? How did you find the courses? What are the kind of things that, you've taken away that are key that you're going to remember? I think that's really important.
Yes. That was why I did the post-test with the research group. I did it 6 months after they'd finished, and then I followed up a year later to see if the learning had stayed and whether or not their behaviours had changed and what they'd learned. Not only had the behaviours changed, they'd achieved the most amazing things in their lives moving forward. So it would be useful because Queen's part of the course and she's going through it with all the others, so she understands what it is that I'm teaching. And that way she can actually go through the community over there and say, look, I've done this. Because it's not just sitting there working through training modules, learning. You also have to download chapters of the book and handouts to completely fill in. So that's why it becomes a hands-on project. But I think working with Queen at the Future Chat, we could round up some people and we could all have a group session like this. Would be helpful.
Be brilliant. Well, Philippa, we're just about out of time. As always, where did the time go? It just goes so darn fast. So look, Philippa Hunt from Wise Girls Money, really, really pleased to have you back on the show. Great to talk about the Future2 Foundation and the great work that Queen's doing out there. Thanks for being on Dollars and Making Sense.
Well, thank you.
Until next time, adios.
Bye.